Hey guys, a lot of people ask me lately how to use external requests to connect to a Silferbots API call. And it's not really that difficult, so I decided to provide a detailed video on how to do this because I want you to understand how it works, as it's really not that difficult to implement into your own message bot. So this is the flow we're going to build. Just a starting step with a send message button. We will transform this into an external request first. So we're going to the actions, we're going to search for external request, and that's this part. When opening this, we will need to have some information. As you can see, we need the request type, we need the request URL, the header, the body, and we also have a test request if we filled everything in to see if it actually works. So where to get all this information from? You can get this information by going to the settings, going to the integrations tab, and if you haven't done so already, generate your API token by pressing the button. You will get a series of numbers, symbols, and digits, and this will make up for your API token, which you need to call all the different API calls. If you press the here, it's a link to the API documentation of Silferbots. You will get to this page, and basically this page has everything you need to build this external request. You can go to all the different kinds of API calls. As you can see, each block is a different API call. You just need to look which one serves your purpose. So for this video, let's do a get all tags from a page, for example. So let's take a look at the external request and what we need. First of all, we need the request type. So if we go back to the Silferbots API documentation, you can see the request type is posted at the beginning of an API call. In this instance, if we want to get all tags from a page, we need the get type request. And that's already set to default. So this thing we don't have to change. Then we need the request URL. And a request URL can also be found in the API documentation. We first need the base API URL. So that's this part, right? So we can copy over this part, go back to the external request, and then put HTTPS, and then we can paste in the first part of the API URL. Then we need to look for the correct extension to this. So this is the base URL, and what action do we want to do on this base URL? For this video, we're going to get all tags from a page, and as you can see, we need to fill in the page/tags at the end of this base URL. So we're going to say page/tags, and then we basically got our request type and our request URL all finished. Then we need to take a look at the header. What needs to be in the header? If we take a look at the API documentation and go to the authorize function, because you can test your API calls here as well, you can see that we need to have this one. So the X Silver access token, we need to have this one in the header. So we're going to place this as the key. And then we need our Silferbots API token you just generated right in the beginning of the video. I saved it to a bot field because that's more handy, more easy. So I don't have to copy and paste it all the time. So it's just for me a custom field or a bot field in this matter. And then basically the header is already done. If we take a look at what else this API call needs, you'll see that it basically doesn't need anything. So let's try and test this API call to get all the tags from a page. Test now. And as you can see, we get a status code of 200, response header, response body, and we get all the different tags from this page. As you can see, I have quite a few. So this is the way to set up API calls inside of Silferbots. So let's do another one. For example, we want to have another API call, let's say a user one, and we want to do let's see, we want to get all the information from a user. So in this instance, we are going to also use the get reply type, request type. So that's all set, right? And then we need to have the user/user ID inside of the URL. So we're going to get rid of the page and tags. And now we need to have the user/user ID. So let's test it. I'm going to say user/, and then we're going to open the variable user ID. So that's all set. The header remains the same. And again, because it's a get request type, we don't have to fill in any body. So let's see if we can test this. You have to scroll all the way down to press the test button, test again. You'll see you will get all my information. So first name, last name, email, phone number, profile pic, the local. So my local is set to UN US, but I am Dutch by origin. The gender 1 is for male, time zone 2. Time zone is UTC +2. Last seen with this flow, and last interaction was with this flow. Subscribe date, and subscribed is set to 1, which means that I am subscribed. Really easy, right? So let's do one more API call, but then do a post one. So let's see if we can do, let's do a send flow to a user. This is one that is being used quite often, and it's again not really difficult to set up. We have the user and the user ID, but we need to switch to post now. And we have something that needs to be sent after that. As you can see, send, and then the flow ID. So we're going to set that in the URL as well, send. And then we need the flow ID. And the flow ID is a little bit different. And with that, I mean, you need to go to an actual flow. And then you can go to any flow you want. So for example, if I'm going to this test flow and I want to send this one, and it's just a random text. Hey, first name, the API call worked. And then I want to send this flow to a user. So the flow ID you can find by going to the URL on the top, but I have that blanked out for the minute. And the way you can do this as well is by going back, going to the flow itself and say get link. And then the only thing you need is this code. So you just copy over that code just by pressing Ctrl+C, going to your external request, and then paste in that flow ID. So let's test this if it works and if it's going to send the flow. So this flow with one single text block inside. Hey, first name, the API call worked, right? So let's see if we're going to test this. It's actually going to send that code out. We get the status code 200. Response header is all set to application JSON, and the response body is success true. So according to this test, we should have received this message inside of Messenger. So let's test it. And as you can see, we got the hey Mark, the API call worked. And it's just a simple post to send a particular flow. But as you can see, all the information you need in an external request can be found on the documentation of the API calls. So you have the base URL that goes at the front part up to here. You get the request type. So we have the get request type, the post, the delete, the put, the patch. That equals the ones in front of these API calls. And then this is the extension to the URL. So if you want to get the page tags, you only have to insert the page/tags after the base URL. So after this part. And then for the header, you go to the authorize button, you just copy over this value, Silver access token. You put that inside of the key, and the value will be your generated API token, which in my opinion you can just save to a bot field, which require less time to copy and paste it every single time. So I hope this video helped you into understanding how to access the Silferbots API, how to make different calls. And if you have any questions, just let me know down in the comment section and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Have a great weekend and we'll talk soon.